Hello, this is Michael Hexter. Welcome to Politics 2100 here on YouTube. This episode I'm calling The Online Progressive Lawmaker Destruction Industrial Complex. This is a reflection on a long-standing observation that I've had, and also online battles on Twitter, basically, with again this group that we're calling, or I've been calling, either faux leftist or ultra left to right wing, crossover commentators, trolls, quasi journalists and journalists, so and I had some interactions over the last few days that involve Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and not involve her personally, but though actually in the beginning of the thread she was involved, but response to a comment by Crystal Ball, where she was dragging out a series of criticisms that she had of AOC, and sort of was iterating them as if to settle a score from last year. Okay, this was regarding this Amazon organizing drive at this warehouse in Staten Island, which was a great victory for labor and for the workers there, and for Christian Smalls, who was the chief organizer, former worker there at that warehouse, who devoted himself to organizing that warehouse and to organizing Amazon workers. And so it's really a great triumph for him. And there was a scheduled rally which AOC was supposed to go to, which she canceled going to, and that caused some concern and some criticism from Christian Smalls, and at the time, and she was considered to be, it's not her district, it's not close to her district, but it's close, but it's not, in New York terms, it's on the other end of New York City from her. But anyway, for whatever reason, there's a lot of demands on her time. She couldn't do that, and maybe it was a mistake, and she should have made the time. But what I was commenting on was not so much even bringing that up again per se, but just the level of picayune, the litany basically of criticisms that Crystal Ball was leveling at AOC. And so I'm actually going to do another video about the particular type of troll, I think, that Crystal Ball has become, unfortunately. But this was more just this, what I'm commenting on in this video is the intent focus on these few lawmakers who are trying to be as progressive as possible and trying to be as effective as possible, and they happen to be a small number, anywhere, depending on what the issue is, 6 to 10 lawmakers, in Congress. That's a body of 438 members, and so they're a small fraction of the congressional delegation and also the Democratic delegation. And so anyway, they're being focused on by these online, or some of them are journalists and some of them are, but anyway, there's a particular joy that people seem to get out of quote unquote calling AOC, or mostly AOC, but also Cori Bush to a lesser extent, and Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar. and but most of the ire is focused on AOC, and this happens to um, correspond to the right wing noise machine that is almost, is focused on all of the squad, but AOC becomes the stand-in for the squad and for the left wing of the Democratic Party that the right wing is so opposed to and wants to demonize and also fundraise off of and propagandize off of. So there's an interesting agreement then between these people who claim to be on the far left or to the left of the progressive lawmakers, but are focused on really, in my opinion, trying to do damage to them. And so in the Twitter, I'll try to link to my comments and on Twitter, and I'm not proud of every comment I made, but on this thread, I am irritated by many people who take this stance, and some of them do it, I think, in a naive way. But they, I don't know. So going back to this incident, this Amazon supporting the Amazon unionization effort, and how AOC should or shouldn't have. By the way, the tweet that this thread, the original tweet is basically AOC saying, "Yay, it looks like they're going to win." Sort of two strong arms and the vote count, and for the Amazon workers, and this was the recent tweet. And then you had Jordan Charlton, who is a trollish journalist. Okay, he does some good work. I don't think he's always and only a troll, but anyway, he was reminding her of her flagging devotion to this particular struggle in this Amazon warehouse, and as if she was claiming credit for it with this tweet, which it just basically, she tweets about a lot of things that are not related directly to her doing. So she doesn't actually claim credit for things that she cheers things on. She's not necessarily saying I did this. So anyway, and I'm sympathetic to her generally. So you can take what I say with a grain of salt about her. But anyway, but so in this thread, though, we have, I think, a lot of complex issues came out that, for me, in the way I was trying to deal with them, maybe ineffectively and wrong in a way that wasn't the best way to talk about these things. But I think there's some real issues here related to understanding the position of lawmakers, and what it means to have a state, literally a state being a government, and then representatives in that state, and what those representatives can and can't do about any given issue, especially if there are a few of them who are trying to cover a big waterfront of different issues, like climate change and workers' rights and women's rights and trans rights, and there's a whole gamut of government democracy and autocracy and government oversight, and which are all things that I think many of the people in the squad are very passionate about, but they distribute themselves over all these different issues. And they also have jobs to do. They have constituents. So literally, their primary commitment is to their constituents. So these are all things that sort of go out the door for these critics, or at least in the way they discuss it and in the way they go at people like AOC, and that they don't realize that these are working people who have a job, and their job is not exactly to satisfy your your supposedly leftist viewpoint, and to create and to make, literally to make revolution, or to create the entering wedge for a revolution in our society. And again, the word revolution doesn't appear often. It's implied that they're lefter, so one could say, maybe that's how they think of themselves or whatever. But anyway, but they're not even, I think, as forthright about it. That is to say, that's what I'm for. But anyway, so going back to this thing, I personally don't know what was quote unquote the right thing for her to do at that moment. There was this Met Gala. There was a bunch of different things that she was doing, and from my perspective, she's a phenomenal political talent, which doesn't mean she's beyond criticism, but she is very, very talented, and she has a sense of the hegemonic issues. I think she could think more systematically. There is no one who thinks systematically about these things, but I think so. I'm not saying that she's any worse than anybody else, but I think she might, and this is maybe my genuine critique of all of the left wing currently throughout the world, is that people are not thinking systematically about what they're going to do with government, and how they're going to take the next steps to make societies more egalitarian and more sustainable, and and what is the theory that they're using of government, and of electoral work, and of extra parliamentary work, of unions, of worker actions, so forth and so on. And so and I think it's a mishmash, okay, of different things. So I don't think anybody has a good theory now of how to do that. But anyway, I think that AOC might, anyway, she's a very, very smart person. I think she's quite an intuitive politician, and she has her intuitiveness and her intelligence, and her good heart, I think, all make the absence of that, to me, it calls out for maybe she could do it better, so she seems to be, if not quite a magician, a political magician, she is more magical in terms of her, more creative, let's say is a better word, than some other politicians around. And maybe there will be more politicians like her that will then create more progress by doing things and shaking up the consensus. And she and the other members of the squad have already shaken up a lot, given their very small numbers. So I'm not entirely satisfied with what they've done so far. I think they could have done things better. I think that they have been too much team players with the Progressive Caucus, and also with the Democratic leadership, and they could take a more confrontational stance. Maybe not the force the vote plan exactly that has been the major critique of some of these people, where they were demanding a Medicare for all vote as a condition of support for Nancy Pelosi becoming the speaker, and so anyway, so this is something that, but that aside, yes, I feel like they need to learn how to be more confrontational in certain regards, and not so much team players, or to, with the Democratic establishment. And at the same time, they are making lots of progress in some areas. And so I don't want to engage in, this is getting to the sort of the second point, or the main point, understanding their diversity of hats they need to wear, and then also understanding what is constructive criticism and what is destructive criticism or trolling. So I think people don't understand the difference. They think, well, isn't it good to criticize these people? I say, well, yes, but you have to give them a way to win as well, a way to win with you. in the sense of saying, what is the thing that you want them to do? And also give them reasons why you want them to do it. Not just say, I want you to do it. Unless you're a constituent. If you're a constituent, you can just say, I want you to do this thing. I mean, maybe give a couple of reasons, but the constituent already has a higher position with regard to these lawmakers. Now, if they're the president of the United States, then all of us have the same, all Americans have the same, voice, so to speak. But for a specific congressperson, it's the constituents come first. So, but anyway, if you're going to engage them as a peer on the left, and you can say, look, you should have done this rather than that. You need to do it in a way that recognizes that that they probably have done some good things. Probably, they're probably, well-meaning people who care, and they probably care about the same issues that you do if you were on the left. Okay, probably they may not, but there may be some differences of opinion, and this gets into some of the hotter issues about like Palestine, support of Palestine, which is a very divisive issue, especially around New York or some other parts of the country, or just in general the strength of the Israel lobby, and whether lawmakers want to go diametrically against the Israel lobby. And there's a calculation that they need to make. So anyway, this gets into thinking about politics and about the position of these lawmakers, and basically that they can't necessarily can't, but they're unlikely to be helpful to their constituents, helpful in advancing certain causes, okay, and also take on your laundry list of all the most important righteous causes, you standing outside their constituency and deciding that it's the most important thing is, I don't know what it is, Yemen, okay, it's like, and the Saudi war in Yemen, and the U.S. support for it, and so forth and so on, and yeah, I mean that's a really bad thing that we need to withdraw our support for that war and withdraw our support for Saudi Arabia in that war, and it's very, very clear. But how much of a lawmaker's time should be devoted to that particular issue? How much of their public speaking and so forth and so on, and their I'm not making excuses. I'm not saying that's an excuse not to address that, but it's also they are a person with a job that has many, many, many demands placed on them and many interests that they have, and they need to create their and do as much as possible in their position as they can. And also, and this gets to, but anyway, but to end this thought, to criticize them and saying like, look, I think you should have done this, this, and this for X, Y, and Z reasons. And that would be, I think, the best way to criticize them. The I think is very important. And it's not just, there's not the truth that I've been talking with and dealing with people who believe in that there's somehow a single correct thing. And for that matter, the trolls tend to be able to, or the trollish people who tend to sort of assume that there's a fixed single truth and right thing to do, and they then bash the person with this single truth. In this case, you had to have gone to that rally for AOC. In this case, you had to have gone to that rally for the Amazon workers, and there was nothing else that you could have done. And again, I don't know. I would have liked to have seen her gone to it, but it's like I am not going to go out of my way to criticize her publicly about it personally, but other people can do it. But then don't beat the dead horse and don't make it a litany of all the things I hate about you. And I think, and this is personally, this is just a sort of a reflection, is that I think AOC in particular drags these things out of, I mean, not only the right wing, but these left, supposedly left people who are, is that she's really phenomenally talented, and she's very, very, she's clever, funny. She's kind of a little bit of a, a normie in some way or another. So she's she's not sort of a strange idiosyncratic person. It doesn't seem that way, but she has good politics and a good heart and so forth and so on. So she's a little bit that people want to take a piece out of her because she seems too normie to them. She seems like she might enjoy life too much, and they are not enjoying life. Okay, so they, and she meanwhile they're not taking into account the fact that she's being targeted by by millions of right wingers and then also these left wingers. So she's getting a ton of hate. Okay, and so. And it's not like they deal with that hate. I mean, they're really, I don't know if she's singularly the most hated person in the United States, but she's certainly one of the top, 10 or 15 most hated people. And so, so she gets a lot of that. And she actually has real security concerns. She had security concerns on January the 6th. Real ones, and she had a near brush with who knows what, maybe sort of being killed or being raped or any number of different other things. So there was just lots of very, very, she has very real issues there. So that doesn't mean you can't criticize her, okay? But anyway, this is all to say, frame your criticism in a way that understands that she has a number of balls going, okay? And not to say that those or a number of balls in the air. So that doesn't say that having those balls in the air doesn't mean that your comment is not the most important thing in the world. It might be, but you need to at least understand that. So anyway, and this gets into more generally that basically people are wanting a lot from these lawmakers, and they really should think about, why don't we just get more progressive lawmakers? So another thing that doesn't seem to occur to these critics is like, the thing you should be doing if you're dissatisfied with her is to support the election of more farther left lawmakers, okay? And get them either to, be independents even and the caucus with the Democrats, or like Bernie Sanders, if you can possibly manage that, and that's very, very hard. Or it would take a special circumstance to do that, but more likely a left-wing Democrat of some kind, and to create a critical mass of people, so at least they don't have the excuse anymore of being just 6 people, okay? And then you can hold them. Then you could start saying, well, you're a bunch of cowards if you have a caucus of 40 or 50 or 80. And then you're not really getting anything done. And then it starts to look really bad for them, okay? I mean, it depends on the composition of the Congress at that point. Anyway, the idea that you have to be suffice with these lawmakers, and then these particular lawmakers have to be your stalking horses for your ideals, is like, well, no, go out and find new ones, not necessarily to replace them, find them in your area where you are and support them and work for them and try to get them elected. And that seems too hard for some of these people, and it involves too much compromise often, because you have to get elected in a given district, and you have to create the consensus in that district that, or not the consensus, but the plurality of people, large enough plurality to win a primary, and then a majority to win the, or be first past the post to win the actual seat. And so that means sometimes dealing with realities of constituents and so forth and so on that these particular online critics don't want to deal with. They don't want to think about it. So, or I mean, not they. I don't want to say all of them, but let's say a vast majority. So, anyway, so this is not, even though to these people, if they saw this video, they would think that I'm making a bunch of excuses for these lawmakers, that they're not the fulfillment of all their particular beliefs about a leftist politician. And I'm saying, well, I tried to create the framework for them to understand that, no single politician is going to be that, okay? And you're going to have to work harder to get a representation, or to get a movement going that makes those realities, those ideals, closer to reality. And I don't think that the current crop is of the squad, basically, plus are the enemies per se of that project, and are opposed to it. Again, it depends on what it is. Depends on what you're trying to achieve. And again, I'm assuming sincerity here. I will, in another video, talk about, again, revive the question of whether this is whether this is an industry. In other words, whether there's this clout chasing, and whether there's money involved really in trying to damage these lawmakers, and there is apparently money in it. So anyway, if you like this video, if you like the content or my approach, please like it, and also please comment below any thoughts you have. And also, if you're thinking that Politics 2100 has something to say in general, you're getting something out of it, please subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.